Hi guys, and welcome to Reconfidence with Paps. This is the last episode of the series on Where Did Your Ball Go? And if this is your first time, karibu sana. If you're coming back, good to see you again. And so we've had 3 episodes so far. One was your destiny and your origin. That is a video you need to catch up on. And then there was your past, and then there's present, which was the last one. And then now today we are talking about the future. And when you think about where did your ball go, how does the future play in terms of how I show up? And it's because the future is full of possibilities. The future is also a place of hope and faith, because it's a place that we've never been in. But again, the future is also the place where we are able to fix everything. And one of the things that I really love doing with my clients is being able to write an obituary. Yeah, in your presence. You write an obituary when you come for a session. And you're like, what will people say if you're no longer here? And it's because that is a future that you need to be intentional about. And so many clients through that process have been able to fix relationships that were not probably functional, because you can change so many things about the future. And that is why no matter what you're going through, it's just good to remind yourself now is not forever. Now is not forever. Probably right now you're struggling with depression, to remind yourself now is not forever. Right now you're struggling with financial crisis and financial difficulties. Remind yourself now is not forever. Probably right now you're struggling with relationship issues, you're heartbroken, you're wounded. Remind yourself now is not forever. Because when I look back in my life, there were seasons where I was totally stuck in those areas. I remember struggling with depression as a teenager. And if I didn't survive that season by realizing now is not forever, probably I didn't have all the knowledge and the wisdom I have now. But just being able to survive that season, and then being able to see so many episodes that have been positive and affirming and inspiring later on. And so it's important for you to just remind yourself now is not forever, even as you think about the future. And that is how you get your ball back, because you realize whatever is happening right now is transitionary, And I remember a time that people were just doing a challenge on what is one statement that will always be true, no matter how many years or ages pass. And so many people were sharing different nice quotes. And the one that passed in that situation was, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." And so that is such a beautiful reminder. And I was just sharing about myself. And in 2013 again, struggling with mental health issues, when I was expectant with our first baby, and really being a season that was feeling like this is it. I remember I had quit my job because I had a very delicate pregnancy. I had massive fibroids. They were not sure the pregnancy will survive or make it through, so I had to take a bed rest. I had to quit work, quit school. We had to downsize our lifestyle because we couldn't afford it anymore. And just feeling like that was such a crumbling, like it was such a depressing season of my life. And then, now it's not forever. This too shall pass. It passed. And of course, the highs and lows of marriage, of dating and relationships before I got married. And then this too shall pass, because now is not forever. And then also the financial difficulties, some seasons that were so low. I remember there's a time we couldn't afford even bus fare to leave the house, and there's a time that we were down to the last meal. We almost could have slept hungry the following day, and we didn't have any income. And of course also when I was single, just having those seasons where you didn't have anything. And then now it's not forever. And so when you think about the present, it's so dampening sometimes, but everybody needs to be able to have glimpses of the future so that the present becomes a platform or a ladder to get into the future. And I want to bring in the story of Joseph at this point, because Joseph is someone that probably reflects to me in such a beautiful way the future. And so Joseph is a small boy in the village. He's dreaming about great things that will happen in his life. So you remember he had 2 dreams. One of them was his sheaves, the other sheaves, were they 12 sheaves bowing down to his? And then the other dream he had was the sun, the moon, and the stars bowing down to him. And so he's just dreaming about these things and obsessing about them. One of the things I want you to know, the Israelites were shepherds, so there was no wheat, like in their country. And of course there was no Instagram and Pinterest to see what wheat looks like in the farm. And so whatever Joseph is dreaming about was something that probably he had not seen or experienced, but he's dreaming something about the future. And then he's also dreaming about the sun, the moon, and the stars. You remember those are the symbols of Egypt up to the present. And so he was probably having these glimpses of his future. And I don't know, each one of us, we usually have sometimes deep desires, some obsessions, some crazy dreams, so crazy that everybody thinks you're crazy. What if those are glimpses of your future, like Joseph? In a way, I have never seen them, nobody has seen them, but there are possibilities that God is showing me, which will give me a resilience to fight. And so we look at the story of Joseph. Of course, when you dream about such nice dreams, you're hoping people will fundraise and give you bus fare to go to your dream destination, Yeah, but look at him. He's actually sold as a slave. And that is how he ends up in Egypt. And then from one drama to another. Like Joseph's story has so many anticlimaxes. Sometimes when you listen to the story of Joseph, it just feels like a story with so many horror scenes. Just when he thinks he's having it together, something else happens. And then finally, we see him in prison. So you remember he left, he went to work in Potiphar's house. Everything was working so perfectly there. He was just looking like the A-team member. He's on top of everything. He became the house manager. And then kidogo, Potiphar's wife sets him up. And then he's again taken to prison. He becomes top of prisoner warden, he's the one who used to lock in the other guys. And then what happens after that? Joseph is in this space where he overhears the two servants from the king's palace, who are also in prison, probably temporarily, disciplinary measures. And so they have a dream, and as they're sharing the dream, I just love the way he shows up in the present with what he has, because that is what opens the door of the future for him. And you remember the Bible says in Proverbs, a man's gift makes him great and brings him before great men. And so just an encouragement, even as you are thinking about the future, obsessing over the future, feeling like I'm preserving myself for the future, can you just serve and use your gifts in the present? Can you just show up with what you have? That is all he did in that dungeon, in that prison. And then I just love how everything unfolds for him, because what will happen in this scenario is, the Bible says the cupbearer, of course, now the scenario of the dream was the cupbearer will be restored and the baker will be executed. And it happens that way. And the Bible says, Joseph told the cupbearer, when you go to the king, when you're restored, please remember me. And then the Bible ends up that chapter by saying, and the cupbearer forgot about Joseph. So there was another over a decade of Joseph still rotting in jail after using his gifts, and still not feeling offended, to just know that probably one day God still has the final card, And so, this is a long story, but it's going somewhere, just stay with me. So when Joseph is in the prison, and then one day the king also has a dream, nobody could help him with the dream, and then suddenly they remember, there's a guy called Joseph, there's a guy who helped us. And so the cupbearer excitedly tells the king about Joseph. And the king is already worked up. Nobody can interpret, the magicians and the sorcerers and all the wise men in Egypt cannot be able to interpret his dream. And also he doesn't remember what he dreamt, and he also doesn't remember what the dream means. I mean, that's such an awkward place to be in when you're the wise man. And so Joseph briskly shows up. And I just love one thing that I want you to note about Joseph. The Bible says when Joseph was picked from the dungeon, he cleaned up and shaved himself. He was showing up for his future. Sometimes how we show up matters. He groomed himself. I mean, he would have come there like Mau Mau and just did his thing, and probably arrogantly so. But he prepared himself. He was like, what if this is my big break? And then when he goes, one of the things I also want you to know is going the extra mile, even as you're thinking about the future, to just really invest yourself. Because the Bible says Joseph not only interpreted the dream, but he also gave them a strategy. A strategy in terms of, this is what you can do. It's like he gave them a manifesto, a plan of action, a strategy document in terms of, this is how we will execute and survive the drought. And it's not the interpretation of the dream that got him the promotion, it was actually the strategy. Because when he shared the solution, the king was like, who else can do this better than you, who already has the strategy? And then all of a sudden, his future changes. All his cards just fall into the pleasant places. And as if it's not enough, the Bible says that Joseph, when he got to Egypt, like when he's now gotten to the palace and he's in all this greatness, there's drought in his homeland. And then his brothers come looking for food. And the Bible says, and they bowed before Joseph because they didn't know he was Joseph. So his dream of the sheaves bowing down to his and the sun and the moon bowing down to him was actually a dream that came to pass. And so what has been that dream you've been obsessing about, and probably glimpses of your future? I remember, like myself, when I was young, I really wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah, I wanted to be my honor, my lady. Lakini bana, the books, vitu zilikuwa different kwa ground, like I was struggling with my grades. And so the possibilities were probably not going in that direction. I've not even shared how my dad had the audacity to take me to the university and plead that they admit me on regular and I not even qualified. Yeah, because I got a C+, you needed a B back then to be able to get into the parallel program. And my dad is there like, no, she's very bright, she's very brilliant, just take her. I mean, that was very embarrassing when you are a 17-year-old tagging along your dad. But just coming back to our scenario, just looking at how God gave me so many glimpses of my future when I was younger. And you know why I wanted to be a lawyer? Because I wanted to help children. I just wanted to be a juvenile lawyer, help children, just help children get their rights. Did I end up doing that? You bet right, yes. Yes, because I went into mentorship eventually and just journeying with children and having conversations with their parents and empowering schools to be able to really have a mentorship approach in engaging students. I mean, all that is advocacy, and it brought a lot of difference in many children's lives. Some of them I keep in touch with them, and just looking at that as a difference that is made, probably not in the legal way and in the court corridors, because sometimes that place is also very hurtful when things just keep on swinging in the wrong directions, but just being in this place where it's a social kind of justice. And just looking back, God actually fulfilled the dream. And there were times that probably I didn't have anything. I remember when I started out, I only had a diploma in IT, not even psychology. And I would go to schools and request for opportunities to talk to children. By then, of course, the restrictions they were not so much restrictions like now, like in terms of you need a letter from Jogo House and all that. And I remember just those conversations with some of those girls and looking back and just, it just hits me that by then we probably had a gap that was less than 10 years. So probably right now most of them are moms, and this boys' school that I went to, most of them are dads. And to just imagine those were seeds of investments that were from a dream and an aspiration that I had. And later going back to campus, doing psychology, sociology, religion, later becoming a certified coach. Like it was a path to the future, but it had some roots in the present. And so it's important for you to just look at the dreams you're obsessing about and just ask yourself, what if there are possibilities? What if these are seeds of greatness that are already in me that I need to nurture and cultivate? And so even as you think about where did my bold go, just remind yourself that if I don't do anything in the present, even in the future, I'll still be stuck in the same place. And so I'm praying for courage for you. And remember to subscribe and share this video with everyone that you want to just get their bold back. And we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.